Welcome back to Alistair Davies Golf. Today's video is all about power. Now, how we can create power in our backswing and transition. So I'm going to talk you through kind of XFactor and XFactor stretch and briefly get into recoil. I've had a request to do this from some of my viewers from the comments, so keep them coming please. Requests are great. It means I can come back to you with videos which are really suitable and answering your questions. That makes life really easy for me. So creating power in the backswing particularly and start of the downswing. Again, the question came in about XFactor. Could I explain XFactor a bit more in terms of when I related it to a previous video? So XFactor in a very simple terms, in golf terms, is kind of the difference between the upper body and lower body in rotation in the backswing. So the amount of coil or resistance we create between the two. For example, if I turn my upper body 90 degrees and I turn my lower half 45, there's a differential of 45 degrees. So 45 degrees would be my XFactor. Now, the key thing with this is I can show you players with a big XFactor and a small XFactor that are powerful hitters. The tendency or the consistency is the bigger the XFactor, the bigger the hitter. But it's not a God-given rule that if you have a big XFactor, you hit the ball a long way. So don't worry if you haven't got a huge XFactor that you won't be able to create distance. Someone like GolfWRX, for example, he has a very short backswing. He doesn't turn a lot, but he has a huge what we call XFactor stretch, which we'll come to in a minute. So basically what we're looking for in the backswing is a rotation away and a resistance of some sort. If we imagine this is my 100% form of resistance, I can't resist anymore, that would be no good. I have to have something left to give. I have to be able to explode. Now, if I wind too much in the backswing, then there's no energy left to give really into the golf ball. So I need to make sure I've got a little bit I can wind further in the transition period, and then I can explode it onto the golf ball. So I want to work on around about 90% of my possible XFactor, if you say, on the backswing. Now for me, I'm a little bit tight in rotation. So my rotation probably, if we're lucky, will get to about 90 degrees. My hips will be about 45 degrees. So, 50 degrees or so. But I'd much rather have a fuller hip turn and a fuller backswing and have it nicely blended and matched, rather than have a huge resistance, as I've already said, and nothing to give. So I want to certainly wind up, use my body like a cog, turn my body in my backswing, use my hips, my thighs, my knees, the amount they need to complete my backswing, okay? And if that gives me an XFactor of 30 or 40 or 50, so be it. It's important that from that position, I'm able then to separate my lower half, and you'll see here how my knees come apart from each other a little bit, and my lower half leads out a little bit. Ideally, before I finish my backswing, and again, not every player does this, most players do this, I slightly lead out, and that's what we call XFactor stretch. We have our XFactor, say, 40 degrees. I then stretch my hips more towards target this way by moving them fractionally laterally, but a lot more rotationally. There's a slight bump in rotation, and that lead out then might increase that XFactor to, say, 45 to 50 degrees. Then my ability to catch up with my upper body at a rate of speed is the closing fashion between these parts of the body, which creates the ultimate power produced on the golf ball. So basically we want to wind up, let's say 90%, stretch out to another 5 to 7%, and then catch up with our upper body and kind of close down, as I'd kind of call it, or turn onto the golf ball to complete that kind of cycle of body power. And it's almost like, it's little trampoline effects. The body trampolines from each other. You have what we call a stretch sorghum cycle. So as my arm compresses to my body, it kind of rebounds off as I rotate. And these little stretch cycles all the way through my body and arms create power and speed. So we can develop speed by doing certain exercises for sure, but naturally our body genetically will have some form of speed, and we develop speed normally as kids, and we have certain speed phases in our life which will help us create speed. So if you have kids out there, it's important you get them to have some speed, even if it's running, throwing, doing whatever they're doing. It'll stay with them for longer through their life for sure. So what can we learn from this video? I think the important thing to learn from this video is make some swings, put the club across our chest, get the club to kind of get to the golf ball, ideally with some side bend and some rotation, so we're not forward leaning too much, as I've explained in a few other videos before. We're winding up, letting our hips, our thighs, our knees work the amount we need to get this kind of wind up, and make sure it's not fully locked out. Then from there, learn to feel our knees separate and our body just rotate to the lower half whilst trying to keep this facing this camera, if you like, in this case, facing away from target. And then rotate back on and get that club back on top of the golf ball. Those are the practice moves we'd make with a golf club to try and feel these things. And we can certainly do this indoors as well. If you imagine we have a wall here, so swing back, put our hands on the wall, keep our hands on the wall and let our lower half start to work away towards target. That'll show us that kind of separation or disassociation in the transition element of the golf swing, which we're looking for to create that X-Factor stretch. As I said, there are players that create huge X-Factor stretch, but if they can't recoil, it's kind of wasted a little. And the same with players that create huge X-Factors in the backswing. If they can't stretch away and recoil, again, it's kind of wasted. So we need to be able to be reasonably good at these three elements to produce power. So let's just hit a shot here. And again, let's go through a rehearsal. Wind up, separate, catch up. Those are the key mottos for this video. Let's try ball. Okay, so it's pretty hard to feel in the full flowing swing, but certainly a good idea to do some practice swings just like I did, where we're feeling the wind up, the separating and catch up to get our body working the most efficient it can. And I tell you, when I do it, especially if you do it in slow motion, you can really feel it physically. I can really feel my body working differently to what it might do in a normal golf swing. Give it a go. Hope you enjoyed this video on creating power in the backswing, and particularly looking at kind of the X-Factor stretch and recoil rates that I've talked about in other videos, and also this video obviously. If you have, please click like down below. That really helps my channel grow and I really appreciate it. Also post comments, chat, tell me what videos you want to hear from me in the future, just like the guys did that asked the question about the X-Factor. Do that as often as you can, please. That really helps. Also, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I've got regular content coming every week on a variety of subjects. Thanks for watching. Catch you again here soon.